And typically we do a fundraiser this month for mental health awareness and reducing stigma and suicide awareness. This year, obviously, everything is a little different. So instead of doing a in-person 5K race, we're doing a virtual event with classes all month, and people certainly can do that virtual 5K or sort of any sort of movement activity that they want. But really just trying to raise awareness for the month of September about mental health and as a fundraiser. So we have joined together with Dominican College to bring some of these classes to life, and we thank them so much for this collaboration. So NAMI Rockland, though, just a little bit about us. We're a local affiliate of NAMI National, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And we offer support and advocacy and education for individuals who are living with a mental health concern, as well as their family. So we have support groups and classes and educational events like this. And a helpline. So, and I've put all of our contact information over in the chat box. So if you have anyone in your family or friends or yourself who have any concern with a mental health concern, we are here. And the really unique thing about NAMI is that we are all family members. So we all have a lived experience of having a loved one living with a mental illness. And so when individuals reach out to us for support, you're really connecting with someone who gets it and really understands, which really, it makes NAMI this very unique, special place, a very safe place for families to land and to reach out for help. So tonight's presentation is dealing with sensory play and how it relates to children's mental health. Certainly something that's near and dear to NAMI's heart, because we know that the earlier any mental health concerns are addressed, the better the long-term results. So we always are advocating for any interventions with children are so great. So I'm going to hand the presentation over to our friends from Dominican. I think we have Dr. Nadia Rust here this evening, who is overseeing the presentation, and I think our first presenter is Lorraine Hernandez. So I will hand the presentation over to you.
I'm going to start sharing our PowerPoint here. Lorraine's going to go ahead. Yes. All right, Lorraine, take it away.
Okay, so I am Lorraine Hernandez, and I have a bachelor's in exercise science. I'm also an occupational therapy assistant and as well as an occupational therapy student. All three of us presenting are OT students, so we have not yet officially graduated, and we are under the mentorship of Dr. Nadia Rust. I am also a mom. I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and being a mom has opened up my eyes to the different senses and how it affects mental health.
Hi guys, my name is Lauren. I also have a bachelor's in exercise science. And like Lorraine said, I am also a second-year student at Dominican College in the occupational therapy program. I have 2 twin brothers who have autism, and they started presenting with sensory issues when they were pretty young, and I caught up on that very quickly. So I've been around children with special needs for most of my life. And I was very, very, very interested in sensory and sensory processing and just how it affects the entire body. And that's why I'm super interested in OT mainly, and why I wanted to do this as well.
Hi everybody, I'm Annie Nelson, also a student. I'm very interested in the senses, and it's actually the reason that I'm getting my graduate degree, so I can work with children and their senses. Currently I'm a nanny, and before that I was a preschool teacher, so a lot of the stuff we're talking about I've been working on and putting into practice for a couple years now, and really seeing the benefits of it in the kids I work with. So as you know, today we are talking about the senses and relating them to mental health. So we'll go through this a bit more as the presentation goes on, but I just wanted to start by just kind of tying it all together so there's that link for you. So think about children. They live very much in the moment, right? Like I asked a kid the other day, I was like, what day of the week do you think it is? And he was like, Christmas. They don't really have a huge sense of time and before and after, so they live in the moment. And so their current moment experience has a lot to do with what they're feeling and what they're experiencing, which ties back to their senses. And so when children are focused, they're energized, they're calm, they're happy, this has a lot to do with their emotions, and then that all ties into their mental health. So we're going to talk about actually 8 senses today. A lot of us know about 5 of them, but there are actually more. So we'll go through it all though. Lauren's going to get us started. Lorraine's going to get us started with our first one.
So vision. Vision is not just being able to see, it's also being able to understand and process what you're seeing. Children use their vision for play, like when they're looking at bubbles coming down and they're trying to pop them. They use their vision for learning, like when sitting in a classroom and copying from the board. For communication, while looking at an object to communicate with you that that's what they want. And for safety, like crossing the street to look both ways. The more different ways children get to use their eyes, the better they become at it. Like with playing catch, for example. Light and colors impact their mood. For example, dim lighting and colors like blue have a calming effect, whereas brightness, like when you're outside on a sunny day, and colors such as yellow give children energy. And now Lauren is going to talk about hearing.
So hearing is not just about listening, but it's also about being able to understand where we are and identifying sounds like listening for crossing the street or like a car coming, just like Lorraine had mentioned in connection with vision. Hearing can be used in play and learning, connecting with others. Some sounds for children could be soothing, kind of like the mother's voice, whereas some sounds can be really alarming, kind of like a fire alarm or a really loud ambulance. Hearing, the more you use it, the better they can get at it. So hearing can be practiced just out in public or even in your own home. If you see like construction next door and you're like, do you hear the construction noises? Or if there's a train passing by and you're going to hear the conductor blow the whistle and you're like, oh, do you recognize that sound? Do you know what that is? Just kind of helping them notice it and getting them used to what those different sounds are actually like. And now Annie will talk about our next sense.
So taste and smell are 2 different senses. We put them together because they get thought of together a lot. They kind of add, color and flavor to our day. And children generally, come in different places across the board. Some people really love ice cream. Some people are more into like chips. These different preferences are good. They make our lives more interesting. However, some kids do have issues where it's too much, like maybe just smelling someone's perfume walking by makes them gag. So occupational therapists can actually help with that to help them to be more happy and focused and adjusted. But in general, for most children, you can work with them on noticing these senses more, just like the other ones. And so if you're standing maybe next to some flowers, you can be like, oh, what is that lovely smell that I'm smelling? And then if they figure out what it is, be like, oh, maybe where is that coming from? So now we are going to go to the next one, which is touch.
So touch is pretty tricky because a lot of people think of touch of just from our hands, but really it's our entire body. It's what we're walking on. It's what our face might be touching or against. It's what clothing we're wearing, how we're feeling when we're wearing our clothes. So it's not just the hands. Sense of touch is used when grasping a pencil or taking clothing on and off. So it's used in very different scenarios. Children may be uncomfortable with things like tags on their shirts or with the clothing material if it's like wool clothing material, like that itchy sweater that I know sometimes if we wear them, we just can't wait to get them off. Or like wet clothes. Wet clothes is something that's also kind of uncomfortable for children. And this may cause tantrums and them being uncomfortable and being able to express it in their face. And just understanding their emotions and understanding that maybe they're not comfortable because they're wearing the wet clothes or because they're wearing a very wool sweater, and just being able to understand their emotions is really well. And then there are two different kinds of touch. So we have deep pressure, which is kind of like a heavy touch, and then a light pressure, which is a light touch. So deep pressure for some children can be very, very calming. So that's kind of like when you see babies who are being swaddled. That's just to add a lot of comfort. When kids are digging in the dirt, walking in the sand, or a tight hug are all forms of deep pressure. Light pressure is just like gently running the hands over the skin or having dirty hands. Like if you were just playing in the sand and you have like some grains on your hands, or if you're playing in the mud and you just have like a little bit of dirt or mud on your hands, it could be energizing or uncomfortable for some kids. And then our next sense will be going to Lorraine.
So body awareness is the position of your limbs and your body in space, which is technically called proprioception. And this comes more naturally for adults, but for children, they're still learning and developing this sense. So for example, when I tell my kids to bring their plate or their bowl of food to the counter or table, and they're bringing it and they're walking, and then they get distracted and they look away, and there goes the plate and the food and everything down. So they lack that sense of where their arms are and their hands are if they're not physically looking at them. So sometimes children will trip over their own feet because they're not looking while they're walking. Sometimes children, they'll apply too much pressure while using crayons or while doing their homework. And sometimes they'll have difficulty with dressing, especially with putting on a shirt because it goes over their heads, so they can't see where to put their arms. Occupational therapists like to do heavy work activities like pushing and pulling and carrying relatively heavy things, so children can feel really where their body position is at that time. So like pushing a wheelbarrow during gardening activities or pulling on a rope during a game of tug of war. And this pushing and pulling and carrying heavy things creates like a calming down effect, and it could even help them be more focused. So having them perform these activities outside and then coming inside and possibly sitting down and doing schoolwork or a puzzle, the fact that they did those heavy work activities prior to sitting down now gives them the ability to be more focused. Okay. So next slide, thank you. Okay, so we just talked about awareness of our body in space, and now we're going to touch upon awareness of what the inside of our body is trying to tell us, which is also called interoception. These are our body cues of when you're hungry, thirsty, anxious, tired, or even have a bellyache. Children haven't mastered this sense yet, so we can help them understand these sensations by asking them how their tummy feels, if they're hungry or their belly hurts, or if they need to go potty. So think about how you feel when you're hungry or have a headache. Are you in a good mood? Probably not. Children have the same problems, but they don't always pick up on their cues that their body is sending them. So when they have something going on inside of them and that makes them feel uncomfortable, you might see it expressed as a meltdown or whining or pushing their siblings' buttons for no reason. As a parent, you know your child the best, so you are the best person to help them tune into those cues that their bodies are giving them instead of having a meltdown. And this will help them develop an understanding of their own body signals and eventually manage their own emotions better. And now Annie will talk about our next sense.